Welcome back, it's me, Lou, and I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review. And today we are looking at this from Star Wars The Black Series. We have two of the prominent characters from the upcoming animated series, Star Wars The Bad Batch, and they are Hunter and Crosshair. So today is May 3rd, and tomorrow is May the 4th, and the debut of the new animated series. So I thought it'd be very topical to take a look at these two action figures. So right off the bat, as usual, let's take a look at the packaging. So these are the new Black Series boxes. They're nice. They're more decorative than the previous Black Series boxes where they're, just really just black and red. But these are cool. The right side kind of has this embankment, and there's a character portrait of the figure that you're getting. And the cool thing with these, especially if you get figures in the same wave, is that you could combine the portraits together along the spine and make a pretty cool illustration. So if you're a mint on card collector and you just want to display these on your shelf, you can line all the boxes up and make a cool little scene just like this one. So the figures we have here, we have Hunter on our left and Crosshair on our right. As I mentioned previously, these are two of the prominent characters of the Bad Batch. Hunter is the group leader, whereas Crosshair, he is the sniper. Moving on to the back of the box, we have the character bios. Once again, we see the really cool looking character portraits. Hunter looks pretty badass with his vibro knife, and here's Crosshair with his sniper rifle. So, let's read their bios. We'll start with Hunter. Hunter, the Bad Batch, technically known as Clone Force 99, is the result of Kaminoan experiments to create a specialist unit of clone Commandos. Hunter, their leader, is a strong and stoic soldier with extraordinary keen senses that give him an edge when tracking down his targets. And let's take a look at Crosshair. Crosshair, the Bad Batch, technically known as Clone Force 99, is a result of Kaminoan experiments to create a specialist unit of clone Commandos. Crosshair is the team sniper whose sharp vision gives him superior accuracy and as a result an air of superiority. So it's been some time since I saw the last season of Clone Wars, and not that these guys weren't memorable, but I don't know. I don't think I retained too much from that last season, other than just focusing on like Ahsoka and stuff. But I do remember the characters being, kind of cool. To be honest, I wasn't too keen on the characters' design aesthetic. All right, so these guys, the Bad Batch, they're all clones of the Jango Fett template, and just like all clone troopers during the Clone Wars eras, they're all clones of Jango Fett. But what makes these guys unique is that they're imperfect clones. These guys are all kind of flawed. So you have this, very specialist group of flawed clones, and the fact that they're, flawed and imperfect, it just kind of makes them even more unique. And I think one of the ongoing themes of the original Clone Wars cartoon is the fact that it really explored the different clone troopers, and despite the fact that they're all clones of Jango Fett, each one kind of had their own personal identity, which made them very special and very unique. So it was very quick for fans to gravitate towards certain characters, like Captain Rex or like Commander Cody. Because even though they're all clones, they all stood out from one another. They all had their own different personalities. Like some of the clones like Echo and Fives. So it was just really cool. And I think, we're going to explore that even further, I think, with the new animated series. And I'm looking forward to it. To be honest, I'm a little bit lukewarm to it right now. Part of me kind of feels like with that last season of Clone Wars, that should have just been the end of that chapter and they should just close the book on it. But I'm also kind of curious because from what I've seen with the commercials and the trailers and stuff, it looks like they're kind of exploring what it means to be a clone after the Clone Wars, and I'm really interested in that kind of thing. I'm really curious to see how, clones transitioned from, the Clone Wars into the post Clone Wars life, and where the transition of bringing the stormtroopers came in. So I kind of hope they kind of touch upon that. So let's take a look at these figures. Right, so I want to save. So of these two figures, I want to review. Not that they're boring, but I want to save the figure that has the most bang for your buck last. So I'm looking at Crosshair here, and he seems a little bit more interesting to me than Hunter. So I think we'll save this guy for last, and we'll start off with Hunter. Okay, so here we have Hunter out of his box and still in his tray. So we have the figure, centered on the tray and his accessories around him. We have his helmet, his blaster, his backpack, his knife, and a pistol. Right, for now, I'm just going to leave the pistol and the knife in the tray. I don't want to take them out because I don't know, I'm probably going to knock them off my desk and lose them forever. So for now, we'll just, focus on just the figure at hand and these larger accessories. If I feel the need to later, I'll take these out. But for now, I think we could pass on the smaller stuff. So right off the bat, my first impression of the figure when I saw it sitting in the tray it was kind of weird because I looked at him and part of me kind of felt like there's something generic about him, but at the same time, there's part of me that's like there's something very unique about the character. Right off the bat, I kind of had this problem with the Ventress Black Series figure I reviewed a few videos back. Okay, so this is based off of a character from the animated series. So this character it doesn't exist in a live action form. And what bothered me with the Ventress one was that, so with these Black Series figures, they're tapping into the animated series and I think some of the other fictions, like maybe the comic books. And they're giving us these really cool 6-inch figures that represents those characters, but they're not necessarily true to form in the sense that this guy looks like how he looks like in the animated series. This has a much more realistic approach, which it's cool because I know a lot of collectors, they want all of their Black Series figures to flow together. So I think it'd be kind of disjarring if you had, let's say you have a shelf of 50 realistic looking characters. You have Mark Hamill that represents Luke Skywalker, Harrison Ford as Han Solo. And then, I think your immersion would be broken up if all of a sudden you had a figure like this, but he looked too cartoony. And that's where I'm kind of feeling conflicted because for me, I'm not concerned about that consistency of having all of my figures look photorealistic and looking like they could exist in real life. Like for me, I'd want this guy to look like how he actually looks like in the cartoon. I would actually want his face to be sculpted and molded and look like the actual cartoon model, not at an attempt to make it look realistic. And I think it's kind of throwing me off. Like these guys are supposed to be clones of Jango Fett, aka the real actor is Tamora Morrison. And I'm not sure if I don't know if I could see Tamora Morrison's face in this, to be honest. Maybe it's because it's covered up in makeup. Maybe it's because this is a younger period in his age than we've seen Tamora Morrison in Attack of the Clones, or even he's really old looking in Mandalorian. But all right, so aesthetically, I have issues with this. But, you know, if you're just, in terms of this being an action figure, immediately when I held this, there's parts of me is like, wow, for an action figure, something about this, they're doing something, you know, really right about this. I like the fact that the shoulder pads, the armor, is made of a softer plastic. So, you know, when you move this guy's arm up, you have that range of mobility, and this will move around. But at the same time, I'm not sure if that works all the time, because, you know, after I raised it up and pulled it down, it kind of just floats now. It doesn't fall back to the side as nice as this one does. Yeah, so I think it takes a while for the plastic, after you move it up, to reset itself, and then it'll constrict and fall back down to where it needs to be. But it's cool that they give you that option. I've seen other figures. I'm not sure what line. It might have been, if it's in a Marvel Legends line. It might be an Iron Man figure. I think some of the Iron Man figures for Marvel Legends, the shoulder pad, because yeah, it's a similar design, where Iron Man has these armor plates above his upper arms, but I think they're hinged pieces towards the top, so they actually go up and down, as opposed to this being just soft. Because there's a part of me that kind of thinks that after time, you know, if this is more of a rubbery material, this might suffer from dry rot, and I wouldn't be surprised, like in maybe like 3 years, that this all of a sudden just cracks, and then this just falls off. But for now, it works. The articulation is what you come to expect. There is no bicep swivel, but there's swivel at the elbow. He has ab crunch, no waist swivel, but he does have a swivel mid-torso, which again, I'm kind of, wait, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of conflicted on that, because even though he could twist mid-torso, I would have liked to have the waist swivel. Good range of movement for the head and neck. Same with the legs. I don't have any other Clone Trooper figures on me right now, so I'm not sure if there's any reuse here, especially in terms of the armor. But I don't know, it looks all kind of new to me. I might be wrong on that. Paint application wise, I have problems with this one. As you can see here with his hair, it kind of just stopped right there. So part of his hair is colored flesh color. It's still the color of the molded plastic. Normally stuff like that doesn't bother me, but when you're looking at the character head on, it looks weird, because it almost looks like he has something hanging from his ears. I give them points for this, though. It's very subtle, but it's cool that they gave his armor little nicks of battle damage. So if you look right here, there's a small sliver of silver there, some silver here. So it's cool to see that his armor is actually dinged and scratched up a little. So, you know, this guy's seen combat. He has a very flat ass, I have to say. So this guy aesthetically, I think from what I remember Filoni saying, is that he's kind of inspired by some of the action heroes of the 80s. Like, when I first looked at this guy, he kind of reminds me of the one dude from Predator. And, you know, the red headband kind of screams kind of like, you know, John Rambo from the Rambo films of the 80s. Which is cool. It's kind of a cool callback to that era. Especially since, you know, this is a group of specialist commandos. You know, you think of stuff of like, I don't know, like Delta Squad, SEAL Team 6, stuff like that. Alright, so let's take a look at some of his accessories. Alright, so we have his helmet. It's a soft, pliable plastic. And does it fit on his head? Yes, it does. Now, as we look at the helmet, helmets are always kind of weird, because sometimes the helmets, like, you remove the helmet, the character looks correct in all its proportions, but then the minute you put the helmet on, you know, all of a sudden the head might look a little bit too big, which I think might be the case here. This head looks like, it looks if I could reduce the head and shrink it like 5% down, I think that'd be perfect. But it's not so big that it looks weird. You know, if you just stare at it long enough, it'll just go, oh, it looks a little bit too big. But that's why I kind of like the idea of action figures when they give you two portrait choices. Like, you know, instead of giving you a helmet, they give you a whole different head altogether where it is the helmet. So you pull off this head and just put on the helmet. But at the same time, there's a part of me that really appreciates the fact that this is actually an accessory that can interact with the head. So I'm kind of conflicted. It's nice though. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's great that they give you this. You know, if I had to be nitpicky about it, there's a part of me I think I would have just preferred them giving me a solid head mold altogether versus this rubbery thing that fits over his head. Because I mean, I think you can still get the effect of the helmet, but that's just how it is. The backpack is a big piece of plastic, and to be honest, I'm kind of disappointed with it. It's a nice sculpt. It looks cool, but I don't think it does anything. It'd be nice if there was some sort of compartment that you can open. Like, I'm pretty sure I never opened it, but I remember seeing videos on it. I have it, but it's still on the card. But I have the Black Series Hoth Trooper. And the Hoth Trooper was cool because I think with the backpack you could remove it, and it's kind of like a fun little surprise. They kept a different portrait inside of there, so you could actually swap out the faces. But for this, I don't think this does anything. It's just a big chunk of plastic. And as a kid, I always liked, I mentioned this in a previous video, like with some characters like G.I. Joe characters, I loved it when I got a backpack with a figure, and then you could do stuff with the backpack, whether it was storing the character's weapons, or if the backpack folded out to like reveal a communications pad or something. So it seemed like there was a missed opportunity here to do something with this backpack, unless I'm just not seeing it. It looks like it's molded of two pieces, but nothing really opens. So, but it plugs in here. It's nice and solid. It's not going to fall out. You know, once you slap the helmet on, the character looks complete. And there's actually so you can take his vibro knife and you can actually store it in this sheath on his arm gauntlet right here. There's a slot here for his knife, so you can store that there, which is cool. I like that little detail. So it's cool. I don't know. I'm kind of torn, to be honest. I'm just kind of torn on this guy. I could talk about the aesthetic now, but I think we should just move on to Crosshair, just so we can get the pair of them out here. But if I had to give real quick, if I had to give a numerical of, if I had to rate this guy on a scale of 1 to 10, where does he stand? 6.5 or a 7, right? And it's not a bad 6.5 or 7. I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I don't know. It could also just be maybe, it could be this trooper burnout. Maybe I've handled so many trooper figures over the years, especially with the Black Series stuff, that maybe it doesn't feel new to me. Does that make sense? Like if they like held off on making Stormtrooper figures for a while and you got this guy, all of a sudden I'd be all over this. But you handle one clone trooper or Stormtrooper, and after a while they all start to feel the same. But we'll come back to this guy later. Let's take a look at Crosshair. Alright, we have Crosshair in his tray. And first impressions, this one wowed me. Nothing against this one, but as soon as I took this guy out of the tray and I saw him sitting in his tray with all his accessories, I was kind of like, in my head, I'm like, wow, this looks really cool. Even though I'm kind of lukewarm to the cartoon, and I vaguely remember any of the stuff that happened when they appeared on Clone Wars that one season. The minute I saw this guy, I was kind of like, this guy looks really... He looks fun. I think in terms of, if you're a kid and you want... You have an option to play with either two of these figures. I think as a child, even though this guy has, you know, the cool face and the headband, this guy, he looks like you're going to have a serious fun time playing with him. Aesthetically, I like his design a lot more. There's something about this character. He just looks so cool. I love the fact that his costume is very asymmetrical. Like, you have this thing here. I don't know what it is on his shoulder pad. It kind of jets out. It's like a pointy thing. I don't know if it's practical in real life, but it just looks cool. He has a cool strap and harness and his holster, whereas Hunter doesn't have any of that stuff. It's awesome. His face looks cool too. He kind of reminds me of the X-Men character Cable. He kind of has like this scar. It's like almost like a, you know, crosshair over his right eye, and then he has grayer hair. So I'm kind of curious if he has grayer hair by choice, kind of like how Rex has different colored hair, or if he's just an older clone altogether, or, you know, if he's just seeing accelerated aging and he's just becoming old too soon or whatever. But yeah, right off the bat, this guy, I don't know, this one appeals to me more than Hunter does. In terms of articulation, same deal. The softer rubber so he can move his arms. Once again, he's missing a bicep swivel, but it's made up for the fact that he can swivel him at the elbow. Ab crunch. And the holster doesn't really get in the way or hinder that. No waist swivel, although it would have been nice. You know, these figures have the thigh swivel. And I like the thigh swivel on the troopers because since their armor covers it, you know, it doesn't break up their leg. Does he have... I think he has... I can't tell if these are double... Looks like single jointed knees. And the usual kind of articulation you expect from the ankles, I think. Yeah, rocks and then it folds. And for the wrist, the kind of the up and down motion for the trigger hand. And the other hand goes side to side. Alright, so for this guy, for Crosshair, the only accessory I didn't take out was his his little pistol. But his pistol, there's you know, you can pocket it in his holster here, which was kind of disappointing with Hunter because Hunter had the pistol and the knife, and you could sheath the knife into his gauntlet, but there's nowhere for the pistol. But you could, you know, he could just dual wield both weapons. He could have his larger blaster and then his pistol in the other hand. Alright, so this guy has a helmet also. One thing I have an issue with these helmets that the figures can actually wear is that since they're made of a softer plastic and rubber, is that, you know, depending on how they're packaged, sometimes things you could get them all bent and out of shape. But this one looks pretty decent. Upon putting on his head, does it feel too big? Just a little. I think it's the same case as like Hunter. You know, if you could drop down the size of the head with the helmet on, maybe 5%, it'd look okay. But it's passable. It's all right. What's cool is that he could pull down, you know, his targeting sights. You know, kind of like the Mandalorians and some of the other clone troopers, which is cool. I like that a lot. So already this guy has, you know, a little over... He has some stuff on him that Hunter doesn't have. Just like Hunter, he comes with a backpack. And this backpack, I don't know, it's just a chunk of plastic, two pieces of plastic glued together. But the nice thing with this one is that it's slotted out. So you can put this on the back, and then you can take a sniper rifle and actually store it. So already, in terms of playability and play features, Crosshair's the cooler figure. One thing I'm not sure about, I noticed this when I took the figure out, is that his backpack here has a small little hole in it. I don't know what that's for. I'm kind of curious if this comes off and if you could plug it in there. I guess you could plug this off and plug it in here, I think. Alright, let's get this thing plugged back in. Alright, I'm not sure if I got that all plugged in all the way, but as long as it doesn't fall out. And it still moves up and down. Alright, cool. Alright, so Crosshair, yeah, I really wish I knew what this hole was for. Maybe there's some accessory I'm not seeing. And I'm noticing he has another hole too. So on the bottom of his forearm on Crosshair, there's a hole here. But looking at, I think Hunter shares the same forearm. Oh, okay, so they share the same forearm, but Hunter has the, he has the sheath here for his knife, and it looks like this thing's probably just glued on, and that's the case here. If you had, if this was Hunter, this is where the knife sheath goes into, but Crosshair doesn't have that. Yeah, so right off the bat. All right, so if I had to rate this guy on a scale between 1 to 10, this guy is easily an 8. 8 or an 8.5. The 8.5 might be a little too high, but there's so much cool stuff going on with him. He's very unique. So Hunter's the leader, but to be honest, I feel his design is a little bit lackluster. If going back, if I was Filoni or whoever designed these characters, I kind of feel like I really feel like the Crosshair design should have been designated the leader. Maybe could at least swap the heads out and made, because something about this character design feels more like the leader. Like, especially once you put the helmet on, it reminds me so much of Captain Rex. He's just missing the ARC Trooper and the Battle Comma here, that little skirt. But the fact that he has this asymmetrical design, he feels more like a one-off, a very unique character. Where this guy, you throw this on, and his helmet, it's very Clone Trooper, Stormtrooper, what you come to expect. And if he didn't have his backpack on, you'd swear that you could just army build this and have this a troop of this guy's standard, with this being the leader. But since Hunter is the leader, his design is a little bit sleeker. He's a little bit more. This is the guy that's going to be on the run. This is the guy that's going to rush into things, and it makes sense that his design is a little bit more bare bones, especially for what these guys are. But I think it's just my own personal opinion. If I was the guy designing this troop of Super Troopers, I'd probably make this design the leader. But I don't know. Yeah, so overall, I really like Crosshair. I think he's the better of the two figures, which sucks because Hunter is the leader, and I think, I don't know. I think you need both of these. There's no way around that. If you're into Star Wars, if you're into the Black Series, and I'm sure everyone's gonna love the new cartoon, you got to get both these figures. And I'm looking at these figures in the light right now, so I don't know if it's just by design or if this is a manufacturing error, but they're actually two different colors of gray, which is kind of throwing me off. So I'm not sure if the camera's catching it, but Hunter is actually a lighter gray armor than Crosshair. Now that could be a character design, because Crosshair is the sniper, so he's kind of more so in the shadows. So it makes sense that he'd wear darker armor. But if they're a specialist unit and they're grouped together, you'd figure they'd all be colored the same. So until they make the other characters, I'm really curious if this is a manufacturing error that this guy looks lighter than this guy. Yeah, because you can see here on the chest, right? So they share the same color, dark, super dark gray, right below the breast line. But then right here where their chest is, it's a lighter gray here, but it's darker on Crosshair. And on their legs, the outer thigh has a lighter gray versus the inner thigh, which is super dark. And that's the case here also. But the contrast isn't amped as much since this is darker. And in terms of paint application, one thing that Hunter has over Crosshair is that Hunter kind of has that additional battle damage, like that little sliver of silver that looks like it got chipped off his armor. Whereas I don't see that on Crosshair at all. There's some parts of their mold that they share. It looks like as I pointed out earlier, they share the same forearms. Their biceps look to be the same mold. Their crotches look like the same mold, but Hunter here has the cuts and sculpting is a lot crisper. So I'm kind of wondering if the mold they used for Crosshair, after a while, not that it degrades, but it might be a secondary mold, if that makes any sense. It might be a mold of the actual original, so that's why it's looking a little bit softer. And one thing that bothers me with Hunter is that, so on his abdomen detail, it's really crisp towards the top. Now, I'm not sure if it's just my figure, but towards whereas this area, this lower abdomen, there's like the detail's almost like non-existent. It's very soft looking. But if you look at Crosshair, the buckle's kind of in the way, but no, that's kind of the case too. It's a little soft there also. I was going to say it almost looks like it's a little sharper in some areas, which it really does look like. But I don't know, I'm just being really nitpicky right now. Their knees are the same sculpts. They have the same identical scratches on both of them. Same with the boots. The boots are the same on both figures, as are the shoulder pads. But this one has a cool one with this thing here. Now, I mentioned earlier that there was something about their designs that aesthetically just kind of bothered me. Like, when I think of clone troopers and stormtroopers, I always think of, their white armor. And I know that when Clone Wars kind of came around, they kind of really played around with it. Even in the live-action prequel movies, I think with especially with Revenge of the Sith, you got to see that, the different platoons, they all had unique colors that would identify the squads. Like when you think of the 501st, you think blue. When you think of the 327, I think that's Commander Blah. I think that's yellow. And Cody's, they're orange. Commander Gree, they're green. So, and then when you think, when you look at the live action movies like, Rogue One, there's the Death Troopers and they're black. So for me, there's a certain point in time where it kind of keeps on going too far, and then after a while they kind of lose the identity of being, troopers. Because I always think of troopers, not that they need to be white, but the fact that these are, I guess it makes sense. They're specialists, maybe a little bit more stealthy, and here they are in, darker colors. But when I first looked at these, my first thought was I thought of the video game Mass Effect, because especially with the red and the gray and the dark gray and the pinstriping, for some reason the armor it just looked like a Mass Effect character, which isn't bad, And if you're into Mass Effect, you can easily just buy these guys and just swap out the heads and just make up your own Mass Effect figures. So yeah, that's just, I don't know. It's just it's not necessarily a criticism. It's just for me more of an observation. It wouldn't hinder me from buying these figures. I'd buy them anyways. Because for one, I love the Black Series line, and I do like collecting clone troopers and stormtrooper figures. I don't know, maybe their designs are just it's more of the same, but it's also a lot different, if that makes any sense. And I think that familiarity is why I'm not always... It's like I said, when I held this guy, I felt like I handled this figure like a dozen times over. But the fact that it has a different color scheme is very cool. So since we're on the subject of troopers and, you know, specialist troopers, I think I kind of covered the bases on these figures. You know, so for me, these are a must. If you're a fan of Star Wars and you like having troopers, just get these. You'll fall in love. I'm sure we'll all fall in love with the cartoon, and we'll be singing their praises for years to come, and we're all going to want the complete set of the entire squad. But since we're on the subject of specialist troopers, I thought I'd pull out some of my favorite clone troopers and I don't have any stormtroopers on them. I think these are all just clones. So these are specialist clones, and this is kind of a, not necessarily history, but since, you know, Bad Batch starts tomorrow, I thought it'd be kind of fun to just take a look at some of the specialist clones and troopers we've gotten in the past. So these are the Republic Commandos. They debuted in the video game many, many, many years ago. And I think, you know, a lot of fans, they have a deep affection for these characters. And it's cool that they brought back Gregor in Rebels. He was a very popular Republic Commando that was introduced in the original Clone Wars animated series. And he looked a lot, I think his armor looked a lot like this one. This is, if I remember correctly, this is Delta 38, and he was also known as Boss. This guy here, the red one, this is Sev, and the green one here is Fixer. And I'm missing one. I have him, but he's like hanging out in one of my Republic gunships right now, and I can't reach them. There's Scorch. But these were cool because, you know, these were clone troopers, but even though there were already specialized clone troopers in the live action, you know, we had the ARC Commandos, the Advanced Reconnaissance Commandos. Is that what the ARC troopers were? Yeah, so it's kind of cool to get these other commandos, the Republic Commandos. So these were the guys that got down and dirty, and they were super specialized, and they just looked really cool. You know, they still have the white armor, and their helmets are kind of like a weird mix between... they almost look like a transitionary thing between going into like phase 2 into the, I don't know, the later versions of the helmets. And they have the backpacks here. And if you compare the backpack design, there's some similarities. So it's pretty neat. Let's compare. So it's kind of cool that, you know, the idea of specialist troopers has been around for a long time. I mean, even going back to A New Hope, you know, when they're on Tatooine, and then you have the guys on the dewback, and then there's the troopers with the sand troopers with the pauldrons over their shoulders and the backpacks and the longer rifles. And moving into Clone Wars territory, let's bring out some clones. So we have another, I can't remember if this is a specific clone. I remember I think this one appeared in one of the season premieres. Maybe season 3? I can't remember. So I believe this is an ARC Trooper design. And I can't remember if this is the sniper rifle he came with or if I gave it to him. But since we're on the subject of snipers, we could compare the two different sniper rifles. This is the one that comes with Crosshair, and this is the one that comes with that one dude I was just showing you. So they're both different looking sniper rifles from a similar period of time. Oh, I guess, wow, that's wild. Right, so I figured out what that hole was for here. Okay, so going back to Crosshair. Now I'm really curious about this. So he has a slot here in his backpack, and I'm guessing it's clearly for just putting this in there. It's a perfect fit. But as I was doing that, I noticed so we, the whole video I was like, what the hell is that hole for? Well, I was looking at the rifle just now. I noticed there's a peg here. So the peg could plug into the backpack right here. But then that asks the question, what the hell is this slot here for? I don't know. It seems redundant, So he can either store his rifle plug it into his backpack, or he can plug it into the slot here. Alright. Either way, it's cool. But going back to our specialist troopers, yeah, so we have this, this is a phase 2. You can tell by the helmet, right? Phase 2. And here's another popular one. I think this is Filoni's favorite clone, Commander Wolf. Wolf's cool. Now, looking at these figures now, the big helmets on these guys don't bother me so much because this guy has a friggin' huge-ass helmet, and you can't even remove it. And he has the battle comma here. He has his dual-wielding pistols. And kind of like Crosshair, this guy has an antenna on his shoulder. And Crosshair is this thing here. And then we have the variation of Wolf. This is Wolf for like Arctic conditions. I love the helmet. I think it's based off one of McQuarrie's concept designs. This might be based off a concept trooper altogether. And unfortunately, over time, it looks like parts of them are kind of starting to yellow. The camera's not catching it, but parts of them are turning yellow. Here's everyone's favorite clone. We have Captain Rex here. Pretty cool. I remember when this figure came out, I was excited about it because he had the new helmet. He had the Phase 2 helmet, but then you couldn't remove it. And this came out too. This is where I think the 5-point of articulation. Like you couldn't bend them at the knees anymore when these came out, but you could bend the elbows and twist the arm. I love the 3 3/4 figures. As much as collectors get all excited and get boners over the 6-inch scale stuff, like the Black Series, there's a part of me that I just love the smaller figures. They're neat. I think if you didn't collect them during this time period, especially when they were doing like the Legacy collection and stuff along those lines, I think you were kind of missing out. And I don't know. They're fun things to collect. Here's another specialist trooper. This one's a little darker in color. I can't remember. I think it's like maybe like a tactical bomb unit kind of dude, I think. Or is it a fire trooper? I can't remember. But he has the weird helmet with the funky ears. And his pistol loads into the front. Here's another popular guy. This is Cody. Everyone loves Commander Cody. You can move his helmet. Very cool. And he has his jetpack in the back. And then we have, is this an AT-RT driver? I can't remember. And this one actually has specific markings on his head. Oh, this isn't Commander Fox. He might belong to Fox's platoon, this guy. Because I think those are the Fox markings. So here's another specialist trooper. So yeah, big fan of all the different versions of stormtroopers and clone troopers. I have more of them here. I have so many. I have like they fill up like, I don't know, like half a tote. There's so many of them. So yeah, going back to our original topic, these guys. So we have Hunter and we have Crosshair. I highly recommend them, as I said before. Fun figures. If you're a kid, you're going to be all over them. If you're a collector, you're going to be all over them. I'm looking forward to checking out the cartoon tomorrow morning. Like I said, I'm kind of lukewarm to the idea of it right now. I kind of felt like that period of time should have been just left alone and moved forward. But I am kind of curious about how the whole clones and the transition to stormtroopers takes place, and I really hope they address that. So once again, my name is Lou. This has been kind of a longer video than usual, but I hope you pulled something away from this and enjoyed your time here. It means a lot to me that you give up anywhere between 15 minutes to an hour of your time to watch my videos. So I hope you walk away with something informative. I really enjoy providing this content, so if you like it, just keep on coming back. So I hope you have a great day or evening or whatever, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.